going to have some serious blind faith just to believe that this just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? People say, oh, well, Jace, wait a minute now. Let me tell you where this earth came from and where the ducks came from and where you came from. And they'll say, look, there was these two rocks floating through space. And you say, well, where'd they come from? They say, well, don't worry about that right now. And they collided and there was a spark. And the spark hit the water, a little mud puddle. You say, well, where'd the mud puddle come from? They say, don't worry about that right now. And then all of a sudden, a creature was born and started swimming around in the mud puddle. It crawled out of the water, grew a tail. The tail fell off. Bada bing, boom, boom, boom. You're here. I'm like, what? That's what you're going with? I'm going with Genesis 1:1. Faith for me to believe your story about the mud puddle. I mean, we came from fish and now we're eating our ancestors every Friday night? No! I'm not going with that. Now you say, well, I mean, but Jace, I mean, you're up here talking about hunting. I mean birds. I mean, you don't like animals? Look. People have a misrepresentation of us. I love animals. I do. I have pets. But I know one thing. I guarantee you this. I know where the birthplace of hunting took place. And I'm going to read it for you. This is Genesis chapter 9. Don't get nervous. I know I look like a preacher. I know I look like a preacher. That was a joke. But actually, I'm a believer. Genesis chapter 9, right after Genesis 1:1, right after the flood, which, by the way, some of our archaeologists in this world have found fish fossils in some of the highest mountainous regions of this earth, which would make me tend to believe that at one time, guess what? Maybe there was a flood.
Yeah, right.
But these guys are saying, oh, it's a mystery. It's an enigma. We don't know what happened. Well, did they fly up there? Come on. I've got evidence from this book that says at one time there was a flood, and now we've got some actual evidence from fish fossils. Who you going with? Right after that, God spoke to Noah and his family. And he said, from now on, the fear and dread of you will fall upon, and he listed 4 groups, will fall upon the beasts of the earth, the birds of the air, the things that crawl around on the ground, and the fish of the sea. They are given into your hands. I'm quoting this now. Just as I gave you the green plants, I now give you everything. Everything that lives and moves will be food for you. And you can almost hear all the animals in the background go, did God Almighty just tell human beings that from now on, anything that walks, crawls, flies, and swims, you can kill and grill? So when people say, Jace, what are you doing? It's called supper. That's what we're doing. We're enjoying our role as humans as being at the top of the food chain. And that was God's idea. It wasn't my idea. You got a problem with it, take it up with the Almighty. If it wasn't for the Almighty's plan, look, all we would be able to eat is stuff like broccoli and celery and mallow dogs. The shish kebab and the hot dog was born in Genesis 9. And guess what? This echoes something that I know you will find familiar when you hear it. This will be the Declaration of the Independence, of our independence by Thomas Jefferson. Listen to this. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator, capital C, with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now look, I'm with Thomas Jefferson, and I believe that the Creator does have a capital C. I believe that life is created
It was empty.
by that capital C. That's why when people say, well, what are you saying, Jace? I mean, is that life in a mother's womb? You doggone right it's life. It's a masterpiece created by God Almighty. Choose life. Because if you don't, we wouldn't be here. Psalm 139 says, God knits us together in our mother's womb.
Oh my God.
That means that if God made you, and God being the 100% holy, 100% righteous, 100% good God that He is, if He made you, you're not junk, you're not an accident, you're not a mistake, you were made on purpose. You're a masterpiece. We have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, you know what makes me happy? Duck hunting. That's what makes me happy. It's God sanctioned. It's sanctioned in the United States of America. So guess what? I'm going to enjoy it. So that's why we hunt. It was God's idea. We do have a responsibility to take care of our environment. We do have a responsibility to manage the animal kingdom. And we do. With our money and our time. But we also know that once a year, called hunting season, we have the God-given right to exercise our position as humans. And boy, is it a tasty position. By the way, now that we've reminded ourselves that we're not animals, we're humans, trees, they don't need hugs. They're trees. Not only did I see the design from God's hands in the wild, and that planted the seed that there's a God, our founding fathers for this country, they were godly men. They sent you a message that I'm going to remind you of. You say, well, how are you going to remind me? Because look, I know how people are about money. They get stirred up about it. Now, I took from the $1 bill to the 100, the guys whose pictures are on that currency, and I took one quote that I'm going to read you about those men. And I want you to make up your mind what you think of these men and how they lived their life and what kind of message they wanted to pass on to you all these years later. George Washington on the one, he says, it is impossible. This is an actual quote from George Washington. It is impossible to govern the world without God and the Bible. This is Abraham Lincoln, he's on the 5. God rules the world. The only nations that are blessed are those whose God is the Lord Almighty. Alexander Hamilton, he's on the 10, he said, I can prove the truth of Christ more clearly than any other proposition ever submitted to the mind of man. You want me to read that again?
Yes.
Alexander Hamilton, I can prove Christ's truth, the truth of Jesus Christ, as clearly as any proposition ever submitted to the mind of man? You don't think he hadn't stumbled upon some evidence? The 20, Andrew Jackson. The Bible, sir, he was asked this, why he carried his Bible everywhere he went. The Bible, sir, is the rock on which our republic rests.
What? I thought he was
On the 50, Ulysses S. Grant, the Bible is the sheet anchor of our liberty.
What? Where's the other
And on the 100, Ben Franklin said that not only should Christianity be taught in our public schools, it should be the highest priority. People tell me, say, Jace, now look, it's either the economy, or they say, look, it's all about education. And I support the economy, I support education. Do you know what I find it interesting? That Noah Webster, or we get our Webster's dictionary, he said this, education without the Bible is useless.